Hello, I'm coming to you live from our classroom at Bentley Hall, and I'm going to be talking about Chapter 1, not only what does it mean to be an effective teacher, but to understand a little bit about educational psychology, since that is, in many ways, the backbone of this course. So, you can see what we're going to be talking about. Let's plow forward. What is it we're studying in this course? Well, a lot of this course is under the heading of child development, adolescent development, but it still fits under the broader topic of educational psychology. Educational psychology is a branch of psychology, and the focus is to apply this research on human development, research on how people learn, to learning, to teaching. So with the idea that if we do this, we can improve learning in the classroom, we can improve teaching in classrooms. Pretty simple. I didn't even know about this field until I was a graduate student. I was asked to teach some courses, and I thought, I don't know anything about teaching. I had no idea what to do. So I signed up for an educational psychology course, and it blew me away that here's this entire field that is just focused on how to be a better teacher based on the concept of understanding how your students learn. So, the field of ed psych has three main principles that pretty much all of them prescribe to. The first one is, and in fact they all start with the same premise, students learn more effectively when, and we're going to see three conditions under which students learn best. First of all, when they can relate something new to something they already know. Well, that makes sense. This leads to what we call meaningful learning, because what you're doing is you're taking this new term, this new concept, new definition, and you're anchoring it to something that's already in your brain. A previous memory, an experience, something you've already learned. The reason one of my bullet points says, for example, is this is why teachers give so many examples in the classroom. At least this is why they're supposed to give the examples in the classroom, to help you make these connections. So speaking of which, I'm going to give you an example. Most likely all of you have had an intro psych class, and at some point Pavlov's salivating dog experiment has come up. I would bet that when it did, your teacher said something like, do any of you have pets at home? And some students raise their hand, and let's say in this class here, this young boy does have a pet at home. He can relate to that example. The girl below didn't have a pet at home, or for one reason or another, she just simply did not relate to the example. Pets are a great way of explaining what happens with Pavlov's conditioning, right? You've been there. Well, studies show that on the exam, he will probably do better. And more importantly, years later, if you come up to the two of them and ask them if they can explain Pavlov's study, he will do a better job at it. Because he's made that connection. He has rooted the word Pavlov and salivating dog to what he knows about his cat and how his cat acts right before he's fed. Well, this is why teachers should make connections to even pop culture. So here's an example of a teacher who can make a connection between the Bill of Rights and the Hunger Games. And in doing so, it makes that information stick. All right, so principle number 2. Students learn more effectively when they are active in the learning process. So when they are actively engaged. So I've got the picture of Garfield down there. We don't learn by osmosis. You can't just close your eyes and listen and expect to learn deeply. You're going to learn more deeply if you are doing something in the process of learning, whether that is questioning. And in fact, here I thought I'd pause for a moment and say, can you think of an example of active learning? It's a good practice to get into to write these kind of examples in your notes. This will help you with application-based questions. This will help you make those connections. What can teachers do to help their students be active? Well, you might have already written down an example, but there are a lot of them. So here are some that I've seen from school Facebook sites. So here's a classical academy that my daughter used to go to. They were very into hands-on learning. You can see on the left, the students were learning about nature and biology and composting by handling earthworms. And then down below, they were learning about the roles of bees by dressing up like bees and going to various stations. The older students learning about history by reenacting a famous trial in a courtroom. And the middle school students going out to the gazebo and reenacting Julius Caesar. All of those are good examples. So what's our next principle? Well, students learn more effectively when they periodically check to make sure that they've learned. One thing you don't want to do as a teacher is teach, and then like a couple weeks go by and then you give them a test and realize, oh, they didn't actually learn anything. Well, it's kind of too late then. You want to have periodic assessments along the way. How can teachers do this? Again, I thought I'd throw this out there as a question. What do teachers usually do to assess their students? Well, if you're thinking about things like exit slips maybe, that works. If you're thinking about homeworks, quizzes, any sort of homework also counts. So here's another example. So this is something that this teacher did to change her classroom to help her students self-assess. Self-assessment is a great way to get your students to be more metacognitive and thinking about how they learn best. So you can see here she's got different little bins that they can put their things in so she knows who needs help and who doesn't. All right, now let's get into the broader topic today of effective teaching. I like this one a lot. This is a topic I used to do a lot of workshops and faculty teacher development trainings on. So this cartoon, the reason I include it is when it comes to research on what makes a teacher effective, most of this research actually starts with survey data from students. You guys are in the best position to tell us what it means to be a good teacher. So usually if we're in the classroom or if we're in a virtual class, we would brainstorm now. But while you're at home on your own, just think to yourself, what are some words you use to describe a good teacher? Or think about a good teacher from your past. While you're doing that, here's a video just to show some highlights of some great teacher moments. That's an amazing classroom.
So they are more curious and eager to learn what is going to happen in the class.
All yours. Okay, all yours. See what he does. What do you think?
Oh. Whoops, the lights went off. Okay, I got the lights back on in the classroom. I think you can see those were all some really inspiring ideas related to what it means to be a great teacher. So let's take a look. The thing that your textbook focus on when it comes to effective teaching is the word intentionality. And once again, I've lost the lights in here. So intentionality is being purposeful in your teaching, to make sure that everything you do is thoughtful and moving in the right direction, to always have in mind what your goals are, and to be working toward them, while at the same time being flexible and realizing, you know what, sometimes my plans don't work out and I have to adapt to the situation. But the key to intentionality is doing things for a reason. I found lots of examples similar to this online. So this is a Facebook group called Teaching in the Fast Lane. And I think they did a nice job of talking about something simple like how seating how seating arrangements can make a difference in your classroom. And teachers who even think about little things like that, like how a seating arrangement can make a difference, that is being an intentional teacher. That everything you do, you're doing with purpose. Something else that relates to intentionality is always thinking about your goals for your students. Where is it you want them to be at the end of the semester, and how are you going to get them there? I love this quote, you've got to think about the big things while you're doing the small things so that the small things go in the right direction. I might just have to sit here in the dark in Bentley, but hey, that's okay. Here's another example I got from a Facebook group called Cult of Pedagogy, and it talks about what can you do to get students to read your feedback on papers, because, teachers spend a lot of time, or at least they should, reading your papers and giving feedback to them. So this is the idea of being intentional and writing that feedback with a purpose and asking yourself, how can I make sure my students are actually reading it and benefiting from it? So reading those kind of articles and thinking in that way makes you an intentional teacher. Another part of intentionality is being a reflective practitioner. This means that you are a teacher that is constantly looking at yourself and trying to improve. As a teacher, I know that I can always do a better job. There's always something that I could improve upon. That is being a reflective teacher. So constantly examining what you're doing. I love this, who dares to teach must never cease to learn. I've been teaching this course for probably 15 years and I'm still learning better ways to do it. Here's another one from Love Teach, where it's, someone talking about, okay, what are things that all new teachers need to know? It takes a reflective person to ask that question and to be able to answer it. All right, so that is what your textbook focuses on for effective teaching. I wanted to go deeper than that. I felt like there was a lot more we could delve into. So I found this research article below. It's not incredibly old. They did a meta study of over 1,000 student essays where students wrote about their most memorable teacher. And they did a factor analysis to break it down into a number of traits that effective teachers tend to have. So we're going to be looking at those to try to get a better grip on what it means to be an effective teacher. All right, lights back on. So our second effective teaching trait is being prepared. That you need to be organized, you need to be ready for the day, so when the bell starts, when your class starts, you are ready to go. You're not still fumbling about trying to get your papers organized. In fact, think about that. As a student, how do you feel when it's time for class to start and you're ready and the teacher isn't? It's not very professional. It's also not an effective use of time. I saw this post on Love Teach with this person saying, I always feel so sorry for my first period class. No matter how thoroughly I prepare, they get the first draft. Bumbling instructions, weird pacing, and so on. Guinea pigs. No teacher likes to feel that way, and no student wants to feel like guinea pigs. So you need to ask yourself, how can you prevent that? Also, what you find is when you have a teacher that is truly prepared and organized, they're not wasting instructional time. Every minute in that classroom counts. And as a student, you often feel like time just flies because you're being productive during that time period. And here are just some examples. These are actually pictures from my sister-in-law's classroom. And it shows, you can see by the date, middle of August, the teachers start well before school starts, getting into their room, getting organized, getting prepared, making sure that they're ready for a smooth start. All these little things make a big difference to help your class go smoothly. Number 3, having a positive, optimistic outlook, even when you're sitting alone in the dark in a classroom doing a video. To keep smiling, keep your chin up, even if you feel like maybe the school year is beating you down. I love this. I stole this off Facebook. Here's to all the teachers who walk into the classroom with a smile on their face despite their own personal battles. The idea of being positive means no matter what's going on in your life, that you need to be the positive force in your student's life. You don't know what's going on with them, so leave your drama out in the hallway, whatever it is, and come in with that smile on your face. Give praise to your students when they do a good job, recognize them for their talents and traits, and help them learn to be kind and positive with one another. That's really big. In fact, research studies show that if you're in a classroom with a teacher who's positive, meaning that they say more positive things than negative things, they have a positive, optimistic outlook, the students like school more, and are on task more. Those are huge traits that I'd love to see in my students. In fact, I usually do at OU. You guys are great. I also love this one. Be the teacher who, when given the hard class, says, these aren't hard kids, these are my kids. Your attitude can make a world of difference in how your class is going to turn out. Number 4, hold high expectations. You want to hold your students to a high standard. You want to always be challenging them to do their best. Now, you still need to recognize individual differences, and you want to make sure that these are appropriately high expectations. But still, this can also make a huge difference in the success of your class. I love this. I've even seen some teachers who paint their entire door with this. Think about the frame of mind this puts your students in. Telling them that they're amazing, that they're important, that they're not just writing papers, but they're authors. They're not just taking a science class, but they're scientists. So build their confidence. Teach them to believe in themselves. You are the person who needs to do that. And I love this idea about high expectations. Nobody rises to low ones. Nobody benefits from low expectations. It only makes people feel worse about themselves. Number 5, being a creative teacher. So being someone who is inventive in how they teach. Someone who uses their resources and tries to find a new way to do things. Here are some examples that I found. So you can see one's from Cult of Pedagogy, one is from the Brown Bag Teacher, and these are teachers who've learned that graphic novels are something that their students really connect to. So they're asking themselves, how can I adjust my language arts class to incorporate graphic novels in a way that I'm still teaching them? Here's another one, being creative with how you do your word list. Students don't have to just always write their words out. Maybe they could spell them with magnets. Maybe they could spell it out with Play-Doh. Creative. I love this one. So the class was told to dress as their favorite idiom. That's a bit of a challenge. I mean, you've got to be creative to, first of all, come up with an idiom that you can then materialize into a costume. Number 6, I think, is big too. Have a sense of humor. You don't have to be a stand-up comedian, but find a way to have some fun in the classroom. Studies show that this is actually important to your students. So this is a survey of 1,000 students, asking them what makes for the best teachers. What's number 1? Sense of humor. Sense of humor is almost always in the top 5 for your students. So it will go a long way in terms of what helps them maintain attention and be interested. So I thought I'd ask, what are some things you can do to incorporate this into your classroom, to make your class more fun, to add some humor? Like I said, you could get a joke of the day, you could incorporate cartoons or videos. You don't have to be a stand-up comedian, but find some ways of doing this. Use humor to break the ice. I thought this was funny. If you look down below at the periodic table of elements that he's showing, that actually is from a Lady Gaga song. This is also from a friend of mine that teaches out west. So first day of class, to break the ice, they're getting book covers on their books, and he's turning them into Batman cows to kind of break the ice. Bring humor into the everyday classroom. Make class fun. I love this one in Columbus City Schools. They popped tents up all over the classrooms and had a reading campground. What a fun thing to do. Here's a principal who dressed up as Elf on the Shelf and hid around the school for the students to find. Again, there are all kinds of surprising ways you can add humor to the classroom. Here's a video with a teacher showing how she tries to do this in her classroom. I don't know about you, but I would love to be in her class. What a great way to start the day. And then I think this is an important final note. When you're trying to have a sense of humor in the classroom, make sure you know where to draw the line and that you're having fun with your students, but not at their expense. Poking fun at students, even if it gets a laugh, is not funny. It can make that student feel humiliated. All right, so this is going to be where I pause for part 1 because if the video gets too big, it's kind of hard to upload onto YouTube. And I will be getting to part 2 where we're going to finish up looking at effective teaching traits and types of knowledge. All right, thank you.